Hi, folks. Good afternoon. We're going to get started in just a minute or two. Hey, Ruby, is this you under community development?
Yes, it's me. Hello.
Hey, if you can help me out we're going to talk about the agenda in just a minute, but if you can help me out, we're going to have a item to vote on this meeting. So I want to make sure that I have the quorum that I need, please, ma'am.
Will do. I'll check everyone off as they come in.
Thank you. We have two folks that have dialed in with the 919 number. Good afternoon. Can you let us know if you are a HSAC member or a COC member, please?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, sure can.
Okay. No, I am a former HSAC member.
Okay.
Okay.
And is your
And
number
is the number?
ends with 106?
Yes.
Okay. Right. And then there's one more number. Looks like it ends in 403. Good afternoon. Are you a HSAC member or a
HSAC
COC
member or
member?
CLC member?
Alicia, there is a public comment from Angela Holmes. I just sent you an email earlier.
Okay. Okay, thank you, Ruby. I just got your email. All right, folks. So I am going to call our March 24th, 2021 meeting to order. Thank you all for joining us. I think we have identified folks that have joined us that if you have dialed in, if you can please let us know if you are HSAC member or a COC participant. We will have a voting item on our agenda today, and we just want to make sure that we have the accurate count on the agenda. So I see there's a number ending in 321. If you can let us know what row you are in. Let me see if I see another. Okay, well, I will forge ahead. All right, so I want to start the top of the meeting with, of course, reviewing our goals to finish the job of ending chronic homelessness, prevent and end veterans homelessness, prevent and end homelessness for families, youth, and children, and finally set a path to ending all types of homelessness. Um, so we have called the meeting to order. I wanted to start with the minutes review and approval. So we have to do a couple things. I want to go back and have folks review our February minutes. I think that is. So let me just give folks a few minutes to review. Hopefully you received that via your email earlier today. So at this time, I will entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
I make a motion to approve the minutes.
Okay, thank you, Ebony. And is there a second?
Second.
Okay, thank you, Drew Cummings. All right, so thank you. We have reviewed and accepted the minutes as approved, first and seconded. Thank you.
Can we open for a full vote?
Yes, ma'am. So if folks can help me out in our comments to the right of your screen, I would like to see a vote of yay, nay, or abstain. All right. Well, thank you for voting. We will approve those minutes by the vote of yes. Thank you. All right. So moving right along through our agenda, we do have time for a public comment. So I think that's Miss Angela Holmes. Are you with us?
Yes.
Hi, good afternoon. You have the floor.
Good afternoon, everyone. Pray you all have been doing well. My comment is regarding the Open Table Ministries, and the city has allowed them to run an emergency shelter. First, I want to thank the city for allowing something like this for my fellow homeless citizens to have somewhere to lay their heads. Second, I thank Ms. Carolyn for being able to operate this event, and it has been an experience. I know that everything is new beginning, something new, so there are trials and errors, which is okay, but you learn from that, and that's what I like about this program, that is you're learning and you're helping at the same time. So I want to thank Ms. Carolyn for the opportunity of letting me work there and to help my fellow citizens. And again, thank the city for that. And it's an awesome program. And everybody, just take care of yourself and be careful. And that's all. I'm done. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Angela. Nice to hear your voice. I haven't seen you in such a long time. Thank you for joining us.
I'm still working behind the scenes and very busy, but I'm here. Take care of yourself.
Yes, thank you.
Hi, may I ask a question?
Yes, ma'am.
So, Ms. Holmes, have you ran into any problems and of any sort while being at the Open Table Ministry? White Flag?
Problems, I would say hiccups. It's a new learning, it's a new event. So naturally there will be things that will come up, and it's a way about going how to handle those things. And I think they're doing a good job. Well, we're doing a good job at that. At least we try. And like like I said, it's new. So we have to learn how to do things. Some people have never worked at that around homeless people. Everybody has their own life experience. So we all bring it to the table. We just have to learn how to mash and work together.
So honestly and openly, you would say it was ran 100%, 50%. We've had several conversations about different things. So for you to sit here and say that, I was just curious as to the conversations that we've had. But nevertheless, it's okay.
Yes,
Thank you.
yes, we've had conversations, but like I said, there are hiccups, but you just have to learn. And I wouldn't like to see the open table ministry not have the opportunity to do that again next year. We could always hope that we could end homelessness, but maybe that's the way things are this day and time, that is impossible. But I wouldn't like to see the program to be crushed because of certain hiccups that come up. We just have to learn to work together, like I said, everybody with a positive attitude, because we have to be mindful of what we're doing. We are aiding the homeless individuals, our homeless in our city. So we come with the mindset that I don't want to be here, I don't want to work here, but I'm here. Then there will be hiccups.
I brought you there.
Pardon me, but
I said I told you about being here and the things that have been going on there, which we won't speak on right now, but you know what I'm talking about. So I'm gonna just leave it at that. I'm gonna just leave it at that. I'm gonna just leave it at that.
Yes, there are things.
I'm gonna just leave it at that.
Like I said,
but you should tell
that's
the truth.
fine. You have
if
your
you're
opinion.
Come up here and state things, and I wasn't going to say anything, but you should tell the truth. I'm good. Okay. Have a good day.
The truth is, it's an awesome opportunity for the city to have somewhere for our citizens to lay their heads. And Open Table Ministries was allowed that opportunity. Like I said, there are hiccups, but you learn from the hiccups.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Angela, for your perspective. I definitely would invite, both yourself and any others, including Angela, definitely if you want to have some offline conversations with myself and or community development, we would be open to seeing and hearing what those hiccups are. Because like most things, when we develop a program in the middle of a crisis and a pandemic,
right.
We are learning best practices along with working the program. So I think it is definitely good for us to hear that feedback. So I definitely encourage and welcome the conversation outside of this group. So, we can go from good to great. And I think we have room for growth. And yeah, hopefully folks can be open to feedback.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you for the time.
All right.
Take care.
Thank you. Thanks. All right. Before I forward with the agenda, my opponent to
Madam Chair.
Yes, sir. Mr. Johnson.
Yes, ma'am.
Was that you?
Yes, ma'am. This is Reginald Johnson, Director, Department of Community Development. Okay. Greetings. If you don't mind, Madam Chair, I would like to introduce the new member who is Wanda Page, who is the permanent city manager for the city of Durham, North Carolina, who is a member of the body. And I just would like to officially introduce her, have you to officially introduce her and welcome her as the permanent member of the Homeless Services Advisory Committee, as she is now the permanent city manager.
Well, welcome. Well, after that beautiful introduction, I feel like you have done so, Mr. Johnson. So thank you, Miss Wanda Page, for serving in this capacity, and thank you, Mr. Johnson. That to my attention. I also wanted to extend a welcome to Miss Page and any other new HSAC members that may have joined us on today. I know that we've had a few join us. So joining the HSAC. and what that looks like later on in the agenda. But absolutely, thank you to Ms. Page and others.
Thank you. Thank you for welcoming
So
me.
I want to thank you. So I wanted to tweak, revise the agenda just a bit. You'll note that items 6 and 7 we have on there. We may have to alter our agenda just a tad today. We do have a very urgent matter that we need to vote on. So I am revising the agenda. After we complete item number 5, we are going to discuss the back at home program and do our voting. And then next on our agenda will be the ERAP presentation from Ms. Gordon. And if time allows, we will circle back to number 6 and 7 on the agenda. In the event we are not able to address number 6 and 7 on the agenda, we will table this for our future meeting. So we're going to make those changes. Okay, so jumping right into the COVID vaccine discussion. So just to give some background to folks, there are vaccines in our community. We are working hard as a community on getting that information out to the public, out to you guys as directors, and as our COC as a whole. We want to hear from folks about what are the needs you are seeing in your special population, your work groups. We want to be able to provide vaccines adequately and efficiently to homeless persons in our community, and also providers that work with this population. So I wanted to spend just a few minutes, no more than 15 minutes, just having a discussion about what you guys are seeing on the ground. I know that many of us are passionate about the work that we do day to day, what you guys are seeing, what do you feel the need is? Before I open it up, we did have, I think it was, and Colin, you correct me, I think it was public health, maybe that came last month to give us some information on the vaccinations, what type of vaccinations, how they were being rolled out. We had some discussions on the priority levels, who met the criteria for what. Hopefully, you all found that helpful and informative. We want to just make sure that the community and the community providers are getting the information that they need. I know we talked a lot about the Johnson & Johnson coming out. I think that has hit the community. So I know that there was a lot of lively discussion in our chat and our dialogue in previous meetings about what we're encouraging our consumers to do as far as vaccination. So let me stop here. Let me see if Colin has anything to add to that, and then we can open it up to kind of see what folks are thinking.
The newest update hot off the presses is we are looking to trying to finalize details to get 2 on-site clinics set up tomorrow night at the Carolina Duke Inn for our guests there that are experiencing homelessness, as well as over, shoot, I want to say William Square off the top of my head. Hanalea, is that right?
Holton
Russ.
is tomorrow night.
It's what?
That's
Holton?
correct. Friday is William Square. Holton, as I think Helen was saying, is on Thursday. Yep.
So yeah, so we've got 2 of those, and those are to use up the last of the 500 Johnson & Johnson vaccines that public health was able to allow the city to hold aside specifically for people experiencing homelessness, due to the challenge of sometimes getting people back for second doses in the right times that seemed to fit the group well. So we are working that. Carolina Duke Inn just literally as we were starting this meeting said, "Yep, go ahead and hold one over here." Thank you, Sheldon, for helping to facilitate that. And we're continuing to work on setting up trying to find ways to set up small vaccination clinics where people experiencing homelessness is, so that we can try and meet people where they are rather than forcing people to have to trek across the city or county to receive vaccines if they're interested. So that's the newest information.
Okay, thank you for that information. So I kind of want to hear some dialogue from folks. From my perspective, from my agency, we are talking about returning to normal, opening back up, increasing our veterans for my agency, increasing their access. I want to hear what folks are thinking is going to be advantageous for our veterans and what's going to be advantageous for us as providers. I want to hear, how are you and your agencies encouraging vaccines? Do you feel that you have the adequate information to encourage vaccines or to get your staff vaccinated?
I would say at Life Skills Foundation, obviously we deal with the young adults who get most of their news from Facebook. So we've been ultimately trying to debunk some of the myths and just proceeding with the, setting example. I think all of our staff have at least received one vaccine, but most of us are fully vaccinated at this time. I think we have 2 more staff members who just have gotten one vaccine. And so that's been our approach, is like, hey, we've gotten it. This, is what we've experienced, and really trying to provide information on that level. We also plan to start transitioning back, being 100% in person. So we've started in person as well.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Bell, for sharing that.
I have I guess a question statement. How are we getting to the homeless who are out scattered around Durham? They're sleeping in the woods and places like that. Are we able to get to them as far as the vaccine is concerned? And how are we doing?
We're working with the street outreach team, is working with people in the woods to find out, one, what is their interest, then trying to figure out where would a location be easy to get it to them. Because getting vaccines to a campsite of 1 or 2 people, if we can find a place where 3 or 4 campsites can sort of converge in one place, makes a little bit more sense. But I do know, and Russ can maybe speak on behalf of the street outreach team and their engagement efforts with those who are in encampments.
Okay. I could make a suggestion if you don't mind. I pretty much know where most of your encampments are in Durham. Let me introduce myself first. My name is Richard Jones. I am a former homeless veteran, and I lived both at Urban Ministries and the Durham Rescue Mission, where one of my experiences was I have started a ministry to help the homeless, where we provide tents and other supplies. And I go around Durham, when I'm out and about, and I check out these people, and you have a large amount of people around 15501 out by, what is that?
Mr. Jones, I've lost audio on you.
Highway 70. What's another place? Downtown Durham. And there's quite a few all over the area near Urban Ministries. And like I said, what we do is we hand out tents. Most of it's coming out of our own pocket to purchase these tents and other supplies to take to some folks. I sent an email out to Ms. Holmes and explaining and stating some ideas and some questions that we have. Like quickly, for instance, these individuals who are going to Urban Ministries and Durham Rescue Mission, and there's not enough room. How are we taking care of that situation. Because I go by there and those tents that you see around the church, those are ours. When you see people, sleeping outside, and what they do is they receive the tent until they get a bed. I would rather that they keep those tents, but what they do is they share them. When they move into the room or into the shelter, they pass it to the next person that needs a tent, which I think is very generous. And what they do is they call me in case they have any more people. Like, for instance, they may have someone, because of their bad behavior, they have put out. So instead of having that person sleep out in the cold or in the heat, I'll go take them a tent and some supplies anyway and tell them, you keep that. But then get yourself squared away. Let's get into the program, sit there, keep your mouth shut, and do what they ask you to do, and they will help you as long as you tell them what they need to know, so they can help you.
Well, thank you, Mr. Jones, for the work that you're doing in our community. I appreciate that. I would definitely be interested in getting with Ms. Holmes offline and community development, looking at the correspondence that you send, and then we can dissect it. I think if you have access to the chat, someone has asked for your contact information in our chat box there. We do have a few agencies represented here today that do a level of outreach, street outreach, that can link up with you, partner with you, so we can address the sheltering aspect of this, as far as what happens when we're at capacity in said shelter. Did you have, and we can talk about the vaccination plan. Did you have more questions pertaining to the vaccination needs? Because we can definitely roll that into our street outreach and talk with them about that.
I don't have any questions, but like I say, I drive around and I look for the homeless. There are several areas other than the two that I spoke of that are right here in the East Durham area, where they commute to, and by the time I try to get to them, they already left and they went out to Panhandle and maybe even try to go to work. But that's where they live, is right across the street from, or right behind Advanced Auto on Holloway Street. There's an area in the woods where they actually congregate. Another thing I like to address and see if we can help is that they leave a lot of trash where they are. I would like to see if we can help them gather up their trash and keep it kind of clean, because that criminalizes homelessness. That's part of criminalization that I've read about and I see, and the public doesn't like it, but nobody wants to help.
Gotcha. Well, thank you for sharing those concerns with our HSAC committee today. As I stated, we will definitely get with Ms. Holmes offline and check out that correspondence that you share with us and be able to triage that to the appropriate agency that's doing outreach and street outreach. I wanted to circle back. We have probably just about 2 minutes more on the vaccination topic and getting our vaccinations out there. Thank you, Russell. I see your comment there about how things are going for your consumers and your staff out there. I guess my final request would be to folks here that if there is a need that you have within your agency where the COC, Durham COC Community Development can support, please let us know. If there is a need for us to invite speakers over the next few months to give data, to give numbers on vaccinations as we did in a previous month, please let us know. Some things that were talked about in the exec committee a couple weeks ago was the thought, if folks have been utilizing folks to give their testimony, for a lack of better words, about their experience getting a vaccination. I don't know if folks feel like it's a good use of our time to do that in this arena, or if you're within your agencies you are doing that. I can definitely speak for my agency, the VA Healthcare. Folks are definitely kind of sharing what their experience are to kind of help folks with the myths and some of the fears that they're having. So please communicate to our exec board, to community development, and let us know what your needs are in your community, or even the deficits in your agency as it pertains to the vaccines. Let me just stop there to see if there's any more comments or concerns about vaccination rollout to your people you're serving and or your providers. Okay. Hearing that there are none, I will move on to Policy and Planning Committee. We have you guys up for a quarterly report. Sharita, hey, are you with us? Do you have a report?
Yes, I do. Hello, everybody. I hope you are all doing well. Policy and planning has been very busy in the month since the last time we spoke with you, working on a variety of things. Over that time, we've worked on our coordinated entry annual report. It was a very robust report that ended up being pushed off a couple times, and then at the end we had to have just a extra special session that was hosted by community development staff Hanalea Hoberman to get through that. So that happened. What was the date, Hanalea? Can't find the date.
I don't have that off the top of my head.
Is the material, Hanalea, on the COC website?
That would be a question for Ruby, whether that's been posted, but I believe it was on the 15th.
Ruby, was it posted to the website?
Not yet. Still working on processing.
Do you know when it will? I would just extend the opportunity for folks, if you didn't have the opportunity to do so, to once it's posted, to take a look at it and see how from a coordinated entry perspective we're doing. I think it's very important information that we all should know about. The other item that we worked on was our white flag plan, which we know in December, Housing for New Hope and UMD worked together to host that through CDI until we could get Open Table Ministry up and running. And Open Table Ministry is due to end on the 31st of March, I think. We worked on our ESG COVID-2 funding. Two things around that. One is the written standards that HUD is requiring that we update with any changes that we made in light of COVID. We need to have that information spelled out in our policies and procedures. And so the committee made the decision to charge community development with the writing of those standards for us. They will be reviewed in our next policy and planning meeting, and then brought to the HSAC for voting and approval. We worked on also the other part of the ESG COVID-2 funding and working on prioritization as we move forward with the RFP in conjunction with also the eviction prevention and homeless prevention work that the Department of Social Services will be embarking on. And so we have one RFP due to come out for the ESG2 COVID funding that I think will be presented by staff today, unless that, nope, that will likely be pushed off if we don't have enough time. But the other RFP that went out was an RFP to add additional support to DSS from community-based organizations as far as it goes with processing applications for prevention assistance, as DSS has been getting bombarded in the midst of COVID and the HOPE funding, especially with the amount of people who are needing assistance. So you guys may have seen that, and I think that RFP is closed. Is that correct, Colin?
The RFP, the second wave of RFP funding?
No, the RFP funding for the DSS support for eviction prevention.
Yes, that has for the ERAP program.
Right.
That is closed, yes.
All right, and I think that's on our agenda to discuss today in further detail. And then the last thing that we've talked about is our rapid rehousing system, and the discussion came up about not just focusing on our most difficult to serve clients only, but to also come up or develop a way for us to work with and house some of our lower barrier clients. And so this is about kind of burning the stick on both ends. So not just focusing on our most difficult people, because as you know, with a lot of this ESG COVID funding, they have deadlines on when the money needs to be spent, and we want to be able to maximize use of those funds and not have to return those, but at the same time, reduce our shelter numbers and our homeless numbers. And so in doing that, there was a discussion about a new subcommittee. And so a coordinated entry subcommittee to kind of work on this two-tier system. That subcommittee is meeting next week, I think. Is that correct, Hanalea? And it will be led by Russ Pierce with Housing for New Hope. So we're excited about that work. So we have been busy trying to work on how to keep our folks in safe environments now and moving forward to the future, and making good use of the resources that we have at this time. Thank you very much.
And yes, Sharita, that committee had to reschedule its first meeting, so it'll be sometime in April. But there is a smaller working group, and they'll be meeting. They've met twice, and they'll be meeting again in 2 weeks.
Okay, great.
There was one question in the chat, Sharita, from Ms. Long. Did anyone on the van apply for the ERAP RFP?
So I don't want to speak out of turn. We do have a presentation coming up in this meeting from Janine, and she'll be able to answer those questions. So that kind of just helps us transition on. Is that the next item on our agenda?
It's next, after the next one. Yeah. So Ms. Long, we might be able to address that question for you in just a few minutes. Thank you, Sharita. All right, before we move on, let me ask of the HSAC committee members if you guys have any questions for Sharita on the content she just shared. Okay, I'm sorry. Yeah, Debbie, I got you, the call. All right, so we are going to move right along. We need to discuss the Back at Home program. So earlier today, probably about 12:30, we sent an email out to the HSAC members about this. So I'm unsure if everybody received it. So I will try my best to give you guys the highlights. And then I'm going to punt it to Colin for any additional information that I may have missed. And then we will need to discuss our voting process. So as you recall, the HSAC approved Durham being part of the North Carolina Back at Home project in the summer of 2020. Housing for New Hope applied for funds to be the Durham's Back at Home provider and was awarded funds to provide rapid rehousing, while the Durham Department of Social Services would provide prevention services through the eviction diversion program. Back at Home does have set expectations. One of those expectations is that the program will follow all all of the back at home policies and procedures, including using 211 as a referral system. The 211 referral system is separate and different from the Durham's coordinated entry, also known as entry point. The two systems don't work well with each other, and cause duplicative work for the service providers. And it can be very confusing for the people experiencing homelessness, knowing which lane to go. At this point in time in the state's Emergency Solution Grant Office, we've reached out to Housing for New Hope and explained that they and we as a COC are not in compliance with the policies and procedures for back at home. The state ESG office offered a few solutions. One is to exit back at home, and the others to become fully compliant with the back at home policies and procedures. Housing for New Hope is unable to receive about 400,000 in state ESG rapid rehousing funds until the HSAC makes a decision. Housing for New Hope is planning to use some of the funds to hire additional staff to support households that are in rapid rehousing, as well as to provide more direct assistance. The state was very clear that if Durham exits the back at home program, funding will be lost or reduced, and Housing for New Hope would be able to still access the technical assistance that has definitely been helpful for them. Other COCs have exited the back at home program. Durham will not be the first one to exit this program if the HSAC today decides to exit the program. Housing for New Hope and Community Development will present any questions, any recommendations if we need to. So let me stop there. My apologies for those that did not get a chance to read it. Some folks may have been at lunch. So that was the blurb. Let me stop there to see if I missed anything, Colin. And if you can just let me clarify for me what exactly is that we are voting on today before I entertain a motion.
Sure. So first, regardless of which way HSAC votes, no funding is going to get lost. If we exit back at home, Housing for New Hope gets $400,000 to do rapid rehousing. If we stay in back at home, Housing for New Hope gets $400,000 to do rapid rehousing. It's just right now, we are out of compliance with the back at home project expectations. And the state is saying, you all need to get in compliance with our program standards, or you need to exit and just continue doing your own thing. And if we're looking at an exit strategy, what would change in Durham? Essentially nothing. We wouldn't have 211 sending people in through a parallel referral channel to our coordinated entry channel. That's what would essentially go away. So people who are calling 211 to access services in Durham, instead of 211 sending information directly to Housing for New Hope, those callers would be told to contact coordinated entry point Durham. So that's sort of the big shift of opting out, is 211 would no longer make direct referrals and would instead send people to entry point Durham. Today, we're asking the HSAC to sort of talk through and vote on exiting the back at home program and negotiating that exit to hold on to pieces of the program that work well for us, such as the technical assistance that Housing for New Hope has enjoyed and been able to help their staff with, and then answer any questions that may come up to make an informed decision. And again, I apologize for the late notice on this. This is something that kind of bubbled up very suddenly, and when we tried to look at punting it to next month, it wasn't going to help us solve any of our current problems. It was just going to exacerbate some of the other issues. So it was one of those, we need to make a decision now versus wait a month. And let me turn it over to Russ, since he's been in more conversations on this than I have, to fill in other pieces.
Sure, and I appreciate it. And sorry for it coming so late. So just a quick little bit of background. So a number of us really advocated for going into back at home because we understood it would simplify things and add a lot of terrific technical assistance. Part of what's happened over the summer is that back at home and into the fall is back at home. Probably the easiest way to explain it is it's gone from being a program to a brand that has multiple components that that in some sense can do and don't have to be done, and other pieces that they're holding closely too. Back in the summer, we were approved for about $250,000 in funding through state ESG back at home, primarily focused on staffing and especially around landlord engagement. Our hope was to get really exceptional landlord engagement coaching that could be accessed by the community. In the end, the training was very minimal on that. We now have that's another discussion of the day. We now have access to what we need through another channel that'll be terrific for the community. But right after we had put all this information in for rapid rehousing, the state came back and said, well, no, you're supposed to do prevention too. So we went through a long discussion then, calling the city involved, DSS involved, saying, no, we have other ways we're handling this. And that seemed to be okay for a while. Now, when you all recommended us for another $400,000 in funding from state ESG CV, we understood things were moving along, and we were having a conversation about how to, do we stay in, do we go out, do we keep parts and not others? We've already signed our part of the contract, but then we're found out that until it's settled, they're holding the $400,000 because it's really coming down to the prevention piece. And what's happening is, as Colin said, there's part of the piece that I think became a stress point was that we're getting referrals on a spreadsheet from folks calling into 211, and then we have to do all the follow-up on that. The majority of them are prevention focused. And it would be far simpler for our most vulnerable neighbors to call 211 and be told, oh, well, if you're in Durham, call this number for entry point Durham, and then they're off and running instead of going through this process. So we've been working to make sure that's all caught up. I think out of 52 folks that have been referred, there are 3 that we're trying to still get in contact with and get sent over to coordinated entry. So it's one of these pieces where it's continued to change, and the prevention piece has kind of gone up and down in terms of the conversation with the state. Because there are other ways for us to do that as a community, it would be more helpful to us to not have this extra, like essentially back door that may or may not lead anywhere at moments to coordinated entry, and just let it go straight to coordinated entry. We can still access the technical assistance that they have. It's on the NCCH website now. It's not being held in a protected area like originally proposed. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Russell. So yes, I saw Drew, you maybe had a comment or a question right before Russell started. Did you have anything?
Yes. So, I mean, it sounds like our system is not really deficient in terms of the interest that the state has, right? A. And B, I know that we are chronically resource starved, although, occasional dumps of federal funding, including the most recent one, sometimes make us feel like, at least temporarily, we maybe have enough. But I'm just curious about the most obvious question, which is, how do we feel about how hard does Housing for New Hope and the rest of the continuum want to fight for this? And do we have any prospects for convincing the state that, there should be reasonable ways to resolve this and keep these resources in Durham?
I think we can keep the money, Drew. I think we can keep the money. It's just a matter of the fact that if we need to say that we're out of back at home and make that decision. But if we say that we are in back at home, we will have Housing for New Hope would have to do prevention. Is that correct, Russ?
That's correct.
Housing for New Hope, I don't think has the capacity. Oh, go ahead, Russ.
No, I was going to say, and Madam Chair, if I can correct one thing,
Yes.
It sounded as though you said we would lose money, So if you'll permit me, we don't
Yes.
anticipate losing any money. I think
Thank
that's an
you.
okay thing to correct.
Yes.
We don't anticipate, no, I will never come to you and say, folks, I don't want to do a spreadsheet and we're going to lose $600,000. I promise that will never, ever happen.
Thank you.
So deep breaths, everybody. No, it's really a matter of that they have come to us and said, like, we think probably you could just exit. Charlotte left early. Wilmington left in the last couple of months and said, here's the parts we want. They kind of went with a golden corral approach, like take the pieces you want and go forward. And so we feel pretty confident on that. And I will say, I mean, maybe don't write this down, but like even Denise Niebauer, I won't get her name correct, at NCCH was like, you know, it probably makes more sense to just exit because we have systems that are running that in other places they don't. So, yeah.
Sorry for the confusion then. I just wanted to make sure we weren't losing resources for
No, I promise
unnecessary reasons.
I will always fill out a spreadsheet for $600,000. I promise.
Oh,
So
thank you.
yeah.
Thank you, Russ, for that clarification. I see Ryan.
Yeah, I just wanted to chime in so it isn't only Russ that's kind of making this point, but some of the folks on this call might remember back some time ago when we revealed the 10-year plan to end homelessness. And at that point, there was a specific goal around trying to reduce or eliminate administrative obstacles that are related to ending homelessness. And, you know, what I would say as just somebody in the agency and direct service role, it is so frustrating to have additional administrative requirements, you know, piled on top of you when you're also getting the message of you need to serve people as quickly as possible and spend this money, which is, I think, exactly what's happening in this instance. You know, I really don't see a downside. You know, we're not going to lose money by withdrawing from back to home. We're going to still have access to resources. You know, as just another agency person that has dealt with some of these challenges, I would strongly recommend that the HSAC votes in favor of leaving back to home, and that, you know, let's let Housing for New Hope do their work that we know that they do so well. So that's all I've got.
Madam Chair, was that a motion?
I hope so. It would save me from turning my gear here.
I don't want to stifle any discussion, but I'm happy to make a motion if we're at that point.
Well, let me see if there are any other questions, comments from HSAC members. Okay. So yes, I will entertain a motion to proceed with the vote. I will take Ryan's as a first. I will leave. Okay, was that Sharita?
Yes.
Okay, all right, so let me make sure I have it right. So what's on the table to vote on? If folks can go in your chat, in the chat feed, if you vote yay, nay, or abstain from exiting the Back at Home program. Okay. All right, thank you for that vote. The HSAC committee has voted in agreement to exit the Back at Home program and resume our great work with Housing for New Hope. All right, thank you. All right. So as we move right along, I do want to capture our presentation and give Ms. Gordon enough time as we're getting close to our time. So Ms. Janine Gordon is going to talk with us about the ERAP program. So thank you, Janine. You have the floor.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to speak with everyone today. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Janine Gordon. I am the Assistant Director for Aging and Adult Services with the Department of Social Services here in Durham. What I have kind of pulled together is where we have come from and where we are going next. So let's see if I can share my screen. See if that is sharing correctly. Unfortunately, I don't see what I'm sharing.
We can
Okay.
see it.
We
Yep.
can see it. Up.
Excellent. Excellent. So just to get us off, Durham County has had quite a response to the eviction crisis. We have actually responded earlier than the pandemic. In FY18, Durham County DSS actually started to partner with Legal Aid and the Duke Civil Justice Clinic to start addressing evictions from a legal standpoint. If anyone came into DSS and they had an eviction filing, we would be able to refer them over to Legal Aid. Over time, we did receive funding, and year after year, that funding kind of grew because the need was obviously there, and we were able to overspend basically every year the amount that we were given. So definitely showing a need, and our Board of County Commissioners were responsive. So when COVID came, we had a new set of funds. First, we were given the CDBG CV rental assistance funds, and it's for low-income housing, or for low-income individuals and families. And it has to be connected to a COVID related situation, whether it's increased financial burden or whether it's a decrease in income. This was a partnership with the city, and we were awarded a little over $1 million in funding for the emergency rental and utility assistance. There were a number of requirements that we had to abide by, and for this particular program, it was up to 3 months. And we did have a maximum amount set on this particular program of $6,000. Then came HOPE. So the HOPE program was actually a partnership between NCORE and the Department of Health and Human Services here in North Carolina. They were given a large sum of money. They doled it out to the county. Our particular pot of money was approximately $6.5 million. For this particular program, it was up to 6 months of assistance for either utilities or rent. They could go backward or forward. And there was no cap on the amount of money that you could receive just in the 6-month period of time. However, when that program opened, Durham County received over 2,700 applications between October 15th and November 11th. So that was overwhelming. The state was overwhelmed because it came through the 211 system. And they also had an online portal. So people could actually apply 24/7. So we had to adapt to that as well. We actually started having our staff work 6 or 7 days a week. Not everyone, but staggered, obviously, to be able to process those applications in a timely manner. Now, timely, I understand, is relative. Just keeping in mind that HOPE was set up for the state, and the state had put in specific stages that you had to process through. And once you got through each of the stages, then you got your award. So ultimately, so far, we have had a little over $1 million come in for 454 families and households through the CDBG CV funding. We also were able to help 1,781 families. Thus far, that number changes, just so you know. The state actually took almost 1,000 of our applications for them to process. So this 1,781 number changes. And what we were able to help with here at our level, DSS level, the county partner, was over $7 million, keeping in mind we were only allocated 6.5. So next steps, here comes the U.S. Treasury Emergency Rental Assistance Program, which we have lovingly called ERAP. So we have, again, partnered with the city to assist those in our community that are at 80% of AMI or less, with a specific focus and priority on those individuals who may be at 50% of AMI. That is our priority. There's some of the differences that you may see and hopefully are happy about in the differences between the HOPE program and our new ERAP program. ERAP is obviously coming through the Department of Treasury, so their guidelines change from week to week, I'll be honest, but they also are different. They're more like guardrails, and then we have to build our system based on the needs of our community. And since we've had stakeholder meetings and we have met with the community, including landlords, we have tried to build a stronger program so that we are able to move through our application process quickly. This just gives you a little outline of how much was received, what the process was, and the fact that the city put out an RFP for those providers in the community, those nonprofit providers in the community who are able to reach the underserved or no served communities who may have barriers to be able to apply. We don't want any of these barriers to get in the way of households applying for these dollars. As you can see, the current funds that we have right now are $9.6 million. This is the first tranche of money. We already have been informed that the state has a designated amount of money for us in the second tranche, and that is before the American Rescue Plan is finalized. They're working on that. We know it will be several months, and the timeline on that is a little bit different because I believe it runs through 2027. So we are doing things a little bit different with this program. We are actually creating a software so that you can apply online. You can apply on a mobile application. You can actually fill out a paper application if that's your preference, but they are available in any way that you would like to have it. The purpose of that obviously is for more transparency. We want it to be as user-friendly as possible. We also want to make it as fast as possible. One of the things that I think that's important is, as a DSS, to be able to provide this service is that we have the ability to use the resources of the DSS to assist individuals or households who are applying. The other difference is that landlords can apply on behalf of the resident, and the nonprofit providers will also have a portal to enter applications for their client. So we're going to have 3 different avenues to complete an application. All of them obviously end with an award. And we are working towards electronic fund transfers for our top 25 landlords. This was a huge difference between HOPE, because one of the problems with the HOPE program was that the mail system, I can't tell you how many checks that were lost in the mail, literally. So this is just a slide to talk about the fact that we have created some frequently asked questions, and one set is for the landlord and one set is for the tenant. So I'd like to share these. So let's see if I can do that. So this is the tenant frequently asked questions. Basically, it is providing a tenant kind of a general idea of what's to come. How do you become eligible to apply? What are the necessities to apply for as far as documentation is concerned? And then we are actually asking about certain federal funded programs that you may be attached to, because we have the ability to do categorical eligibility. As part of a federal program here at DSS, we are able to determine if somebody has a federally funded a benefit or an eligibility program. If they have that, they're automatically qualified. And we are trying, just trying to trim as much time off as possible. Our goal is to turn these cases around in 4 to 5 days and then get them paid within 10. So just a little bit more information, what data is being collected. Obviously that there is a distinction between utilities and home energy costs, because this program will pay for the internet as well. This particular one is for landlords. I'm hoping that everybody sees the screen I'm sharing, because I'm kind of going through this fast. And again, this is just, is that a yes from everybody?
Yes, we can.
Okay.
Yep, I can.
At least you get to see it, Alicia. Obviously, I have no problem handing the frequently asked questions out, because I've already handed it out all over to other people too. But this kind of guides what a landlord can expect when they apply for someone, and what the landlord agreement entails. Because there are some, specific requirements for a landlord too. They're not just getting, checks thrown at them. They have some specific requirements and obligations to fill, because they're not just going to get, 12 months of arrears and then they can evict the person on, the next day after their check is cleared. So these are kind of the particulars that landlords need to understand and agree to. So having said all of that, this is just like a 10,000 foot level of what is coming our way and what we are about to launch. Our program is already in process. We were able to start creating that system. So that's in process. So our launch, I hate to say it's soon, but until I get a better idea from the system developer of when we can start testing, training, and then going live, I want to say it's soon. It's coming soon. And I want to say that because we know tranches of money are coming our way, I want us to I want us to kind of understand that the plan, I believe, is for another $9 million to come once we spend ours. The timeline for that is September 30th to spend the $9.6 million that we have. Since DSS or the HOPE program that we ran spent $7 million while taking applications for 23 days, I don't think this will be a problem. I just want to have this group aware. In addition, the Treasury has been very clear that this is not just the Band-Aid kind of fix. The intention of these programs is to address housing and to make sure that if we run across someone, and we do, when we come across a household that their income is not sustainable for their rent, that we work with them to try to find a sustainable solution. They don't want to just pay their arrears for 12 months and then be in the same place again. So I want to throw that out there because this is a new way of looking at emergency rental assistance, and it is resourced for that way. So we can pay for deposits, first month's rent, things like that. So we're really excited about that part because it starts to address the gap between eviction prevention and housing on this side for the homeless population. They kind of begin to overlap because as it starts to fill the gap for prevention. And need to run back. There we go. Questions, comments? Do you think on 3/31, when the moratorium is expired, evictions in our community will increase if we are not ready with the ERA program? That is a great question. Fortunately, our Chief Justice has extended their plan to not take or to process evictions in the court system until May. So that gives us a little time. In addition, you're not late on rent until like the 5th or the 6th. Not that we're expecting that, but we are pushing hard to get our program up and running as quickly as possible to address that. And we're working with landlords so that they understand that as well. Great question. Will this be sent out because I need it? I'm not sure what that means. Debbie?
Oh, I just meant the PowerPoint or the slides. Sorry.
Sure.
And that I need them. That's all.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Janine, this is Ryan. I wanted to ask, one of the slides mentioned that there's a priority for the folks that are 50% AMI and below. Do you know what that looks like for folks that are at 51 to 80% AMI? Is there going to be a smaller pool of money? Are you going to do the other applications first? Or what does the prioritization process look like? Do you know?
Our original discussion with the city has been kind of a phased approach because our first priority are people who are 50% of AMI who have never received any public funding during the COVID pandemic. And then we kind of move to the 50% who have received funding. And then it's we're going to open it up to the 50 to 80%. It's not intended to not help the 51 to 80%. It's just that we're setting that priority. I think we discussed 2 weeks for those who are 50% or less who have never received funds, and then 2 weeks for those who have, and then open it up to the 80%. I think we're really, really trying to get to the people who are underserved or never served, because that's just a piece of our population that we would like to make sure have the opportunity. And the money it's not a different pot of money. It's still going to be the same pot of money for 51 to 80%. That we're not dividing the money in that way.
Janine, how is the emergency rental assistance? How is that accessed?
So we have an online portal where you can complete an application. You can certainly do it on a cellular phone or a smartphone. You can do it on a tablet. You can do it on a computer. You can do it at someone else's computer. It's fairly easy to access if you have the technology. If you don't have the technology, you can call and do it over the phone, or you can complete a paper application.
Do you have that number or the website?
No, not yet. Once the program gets to that point and we have established our own private URL, we'll share that. Absolutely. We'll actually have it on our website.
Thank you.
Our DSS website.
I think there's one more. There's another question. I think you just addressed Ebony's, Ebony Thomas, and Sharita has a question about the backlog. Janine. It says what is the plan for backlog?
The backlog of applications, or which backlog are you referring
backlog
to?
of applications. Like, how are you going to manage that if you just get slammed with applicants? Like, what's the plan?
Well, like any program, we have to address it. I've actually hired additional temps, or we're in the process of hiring additional temporary staff. I've actually pulled or have worked with Rhonda Stevens to allow us to use some of her caseworkers from Medicaid or food stamps, FNS benefits, because they're so used to doing eligibility. And this is very similar to that, to determine eligibility for payment, right? So we're pulling in resources internally, and we're pulling in our resources externally so that we have staff available to process these applications, because they will be available 24/7.
Okay, I have more questions. So with the online portal, the hope is that it's going to free up the phone lines, because I also know that you guys have that phone line capacity issue.
We do. We absolutely do. It's too bad we don't have access to 211.
So will there be some additional phone line access happening to try to mitigate that possibility? Because I suspect that you may get more phone calls, more phone calls than the other methods that you tried to use to accommodate and kind of take some of the pressure off. I still think you're going to get a lot of calls.
So are you volunteering?
Absolutely. And then the last question I have is about turnaround. So what is the expected turnaround period from a person applying to a person having access to those funds? Is there a promissory note thing that happens in the middle of that? What does that look like?
So because we are not following the HOPE 5-step process, we are following the slide or the easy button process. We are trying to simplify the application and simplify the documentation that's required. So we have been reviewing, revising, so that we can get down to the point of what is absolutely required by the Treasury, what is acceptable documentation versus what is required documentation. Having said that, that means that we have to be prepared, like you said, for the calls. You are absolutely correct. We only have a finite number of phone lines coming into the Health and Human Services building. We expect to crash the system. We are prepared for that. We are also preparing a group of, for lack of a better word, another call center that is dedicated to this, to be able to address all of the volume that we know comes in, to be able to answer the questions that are always coming in. Where do I apply? How do I do this? The technical assistance questions as well. So
I'm sorry, you know me, I just think about this stuff.
Oh, you're not telling me anything I haven't thought about. I've been doing this
Minimum-
24/7 for a while.
Minimum documentation. There are not going to be any things required of people that are going to be hard to access. Like the banks are not operating in the traditional way. So people are having to call and get an appointment. You can't just show up to the bank. Are there going to be accommodations for things like that? Have you guys thought that far? Because we still have people that are getting tripped on their social security cards or some random crazy thing that folks just can't access due to COVID.
So the hope is, in order to have that, 4 to 5 day turnaround from application to award letter, we want to make it as easy as possible. So if we can get income verification like on day one, if we can get a lease on day one, if we can, we need to know who all's in the house. But the requirements for the people who are in the house are going to be different than the HOPE program was. We're not going to ask for receipts. There's no need to get a bank statement unless that's how we're going to verify income. However, there is a process that we can accept that is attesting. This is kind of like the last resort if they're not able to get that to us. They can attest to the information and then provide it within those 5 days, right? So we're not hung up on it, but we still need the documentation as far as possible, right? We don't want anybody to trip over themselves, for lack of a better term, to try to get this done. As a last resort, we can take that written attestation. There is a caveat to that, which is if we discover that you have made false claims, then that's a program integrity issue. We have to kind of balance program integrity with flexibility. That's almost exactly what our Treasury Department said.
Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you, Janine.
Thank you
so much for that information. And I'm sure once you guys open up and start serving clients, you can come back to us and let us know how that's going. And yeah, we can go from there.
Absolutely. Especially when the next tranche of money comes, if you'd like, some feedback on what happened with, ERAP 1.0.
Awesome.
Thank you.
All right. So, Colin, do you want to talk quickly about ESG CV2 update, and then we will wrap it up?
I think that sounds wise. We're in the process of finishing up the ESG COVID-2 RFP. And as Janine shared on her presentation with ERAP, part of ERAP is looking for prevention, and that's one of the things back at home is hoping people will do. And if we've got anybody who's willing to apply for homeless prevention, a targeted homeless prevention program with ESG funds following an ESG program, we would welcome people to apply for those funds. And if you're an agency that thinks you might apply for them, please reach out and just give me a heads up that you're interested in applying and about how much money you would apply for, so we can make sure that we set it aside in our amendment that we have to submit to HUD. I believe we do have at least one group who's willing to apply, but hoping others will apply, so it doesn't necessarily have to go that route. So that's just one piece of it. The other piece that'll be coming out is we will be shifting the landlord engagement RFP that came out using city funds. We're going to be using ESG COVID funds to fund it for the next 12 to 18 months. out of this. So if you're interested in applying for that, think about that so that you can start putting those pieces together to apply for that. It will be a pretty quick turnaround, and we will have to have about 60% of funds spent in a very short order because we have to draw them from HUD by the end of March next year. So we're going to need applicants to be able to spend money in short order and quick. And then all of the funds will have to be fully spent by September of next year, which means it has to be back to the county by the end of August, or actually the end of July. So it gives us time to process, pay, and draw from HUD. So just things to keep in mind as we get ready to roll that out. Happy to answer any questions.
All right. Thank you, Colin. Doesn't sound like we have any at this time. Thank you all for hanging in there with us. I know today was a lot of information shared. Thank you for voting on that particular action item. The agenda item of HSAC training and TA assistance, we will postpone to our April 28th meeting, just to kind of plant a seed with folks. We want to know what you need training on. So start to think about that. We'll have that discussion next month. Thank you all so much for the work that you are doing in our community. We definitely have some things to follow up on. Mr. Jones, I have your email. I will dissect that this week and get back with you. I know from the VA standpoint, we have some collaboration to do. And yes, me and Mr. Davis will definitely link you up with the agencies here that you heard from today. And yes, Miss Carolyn, we will follow up with you on open doors. Thank you for that. So at this time, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
I move.
Second.
Thank you, Sharita. And I think that was Renee Vaughn. Thank you. All right, we are adjourned. I will see everybody April 28th. Thank you so much.
Have a good one.